"Why aren't you saluting the colonel?" The officer's voice cut through the assembly hall like a blade. A young woman stood at the back, arms at her side, posture perfectly upright, but she didn't raise her hand. Soldiers turned, whispering, "Who does she think she is?" The colonel himself stepped closer. She looked him straight in the eye and said 7 words. "You abandoned my team in Kandahar, sir." The room froze. Her name was Elena Vasquez, 27 years old, petite, composed, always in a standard maintenance uniform, with no rank insignia on the shoulder. Elena worked at Forward Operating Base Delta in equipment maintenance and communications support. She arrived before sunrise every single day without fail. She calibrated radar systems, checked supply manifests, cleaned the armory before anyone else arrived, organized inventory lists, maintained satellite equipment. Most officers barely noticed her existence. Some assumed she was just a contract or maybe a civilian work. A few young recruits called her the shadow in the workshop. She never protested, never complained, never asked for recognition or acknowledgement. But those who observed closely noticed something different about Elena. She repaired navigation systems faster than most junior technicians. She never flinched at the sound of artillery, even during live fire exercises. Her hands never shook, even under pressure. She spoke in technical terms that surprised seasoned soldiers. She knew frequency bands, encryption protocols, tactical communications by heart. But she kept quiet, always in the background, always invisible. That morning, a special event was scheduled at the base. Colonel Harrison, a decorated war hero with 4 combat deployments, would tour the facility and deliver a leadership speech to all personnel. All military and civilian staff were required to line up in formation and salute when he entered. Elena stood at the back of the assembly hall, silent and still, hands clasped behind her back. As the colonel entered with his entourage of majors and captains, everyone raised their hands in perfect military salute. Everyone except her. A lieutenant noticed first. He snapped, "You, civilian or not, stand at attention and salute the colonel." Elena didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak. The murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. "Is she serious? What's wrong with her? Show some respect. Who does she think she is?" The colonel himself, puzzled by the growing commotion, walked forward through the crowd. His voice was calm but firm. "Is there a problem here, specialist?" The entire assembly hall held its breath. Cameras were rolling for the promotional video. And then she spoke, her voice quiet but crystal clear, cutting through the silence. "You abandoned my team in Kandahar, sir." CTA Comment Act 1. Have you ever seen someone quiet be ignored or disrespected? Comment, "That's unfair." The colonel blinked, genuinely confused, studying her face. "I don't recognize you. What unit are you referring to?" Elena's answer came softly, but it hit like a thunderbolt. "Scorpion 7, Forward Base Zulu, March 8, 2018. The name dropped like a stone into still water. Officers nearby suddenly stiffened. A few looked away. Some swallowed hard. One major's face went completely pale. The colonel's aide whispered something in his ear, but the colonel waved him off. I don't recall that specific operation." "You should," Elena replied simply. After the ceremony ended in awkward silence, a major approached Elena privately in the corridor. "That operation was classified. You shouldn't be discussing." She cut him off quietly. "I was there. I watched my sergeant die in my arms because his command, ordered an extraction for everyone except us." That evening, a young intelligence analyst named Mitchell began digging through archived files. He accessed fragments of an old after-action report buried in the classified database. Scorpion 7 was a 5-person reconnaissance unit embedded deep behind enemy lines for surveillance. During a coordinated ambush, their emergency extraction was suddenly rerouted to another grid coordinate by a direct override order from higher command, signed by then Major Harrison. Mission status: total unit loss. No survivors confirmed. But there was a discrepancy at the bottom of the report. One name marked as unverified survivor account. E. Vasquez, communications specialist. Status: unreliable witness due to combat trauma. Mitchell dug deeper into personnel records. A medic from another unit recalled the incident. There was a woman who crawled back into base 3 days later, half burned, no supplies, severely dehydrated, but still carrying her team's radio equipment. She was babbling about an override, about being abandoned. Command debriefed her for hours, then sealed the report. Said her account was unreliable due to psychological trauma. We never saw her again after that. But Mitchell found more. He discovered Elena's original service record from before the incident. She had been decorated twice for valor, recommended for promotion, and had impeccable performance reviews. Her commanding officer from her first deployment had written, "Specialist Vasquez demonstrates exceptional composure under fire and unwavering dedication to her unit. She is the backbone of our communications operations." Then, After March 8, 2018, her record changed completely. All decorations were removed. Her security clearance was downgraded. She was transferred to non-combat roles, bouncing from base to base every few months. Her psychological evaluation reports were sealed, but Mitchell found fragments. Patient exhibits signs of survivor's guilt and persistent trauma. Recommend continued monitoring and non-combat assignments. The pattern became clear. Elena hadn't just been dismissed as an unreliable witness. She had been systematically erased from the military's memory. Her heroism before Kandahar was buried along with her testimony about what happened there. Mitchell also uncovered something else: Elena's personal correspondence with the families of her fallen teammates. For 6 years, she had been writing to them, sending parts of her military pay to help with their children's education, attending funerals and memorial services on her own time and dime. She had never identified herself as a survivor. She simply signed her letters as a friend who served with your son-daughter. One letter from Corporal Jackson's mother read, "Dear Elena, I don't know who you are, but your letters about Tommy have been the only thing keeping me going. You write about him like you knew him personally. Thank you for remembering my boy." Elena had never responded to reveal her identity. The dots were connecting like pieces of a horrifying puzzle. Mitchell shared his findings with a small group of trusted officers. The revelation spread quietly through the base like smoke. Suddenly, Elena's daily routine took on new meaning. Her early arrivals, her meticulous work, her unwavering composure under pressure, her technical expertise. She wasn't just a maintenance worker. She was a soldier who had been erased from history, a survivor who had been silenced. The woman they ignored every day, the shadow in the workshop, was the sole survivor of an operation that officially never had survivors. People began to remember small details about how she always ate alone in the mess hall, how she never joined social gatherings, how she sometimes stared at the flag during morning ceremonies but never participated, how she kept a small collection of patches in her toolbox. They had assumed she was antisocial or shy, or maybe just didn't care. Now they realized she was carrying ghosts. CTA Comment Act 2. Have you ever judged someone without knowing what they've survived? Comment: I was wrong. Colonel Harrison called for a closed-door meeting the next morning. Inside the conference room, base commanders, senior staff, intelligence officers, and Elena. The atmosphere was tense. The colonel spoke first, his voice measured but defensive. "I've reviewed the available file. I don't recall ordering any team to be left behind. I trust my combat decisions were sound and necessary." Elena reached into her jacket and placed a scorched metal plate on the polished conference table. A partial ID tag, burned black at the edges, barely readable. "That belonged to Sergeant Murphy, the last person who radioed you while requesting immediate medical evacuation for our wounded." She pulled out a small, worn notebook, pages yellowed with age. Each page held handwritten entries: names, ranks, blood types, final radio transmissions, medical status updates. Her team's last records logged manually while under enemy fire. The room stayed completely silent as she flipped through the pages. "Corporal Jackson took shrapnel to the spine, protecting our communications array. He died calling for extraction that never came. Before he died, he made me promise to tell his mother he wasn't scared. He was lying. I could see the fear in his eyes, but he was more worried about her than himself." She turned the page. "Specialist Brooks held our position for 8 hours with internal bleeding. She kept saying she had to get home for her daughter's birth. She died believing help was on the way, asking me to sing her daughter's favorite lullaby. I did, even though my voice was breaking." Another page. "Private Wilson, 20 years old, bled out asking me to tell his girlfriend he loved. He had an engagement ring in his pocket, was planning to propose when he got back. I still have it. She never knew he was going to ask." Her voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "Sergeant Murphy, our team leader, used his own medical supplies to keep me alive. He could have saved himself, but he chose to give me his morphine, his bandages, his water. In his final moments, he made me swear to live not just for myself, but for all of them. He died so I could carry this story home." She pulled out a small metal box from her jacket. Inside were personal items: a photo of Jackson's family, Brooks' daughter's drawing, Wilson's engagement ring, Murphy's wedding band, and a letter each of them had written to their loved ones before the mission, letters they never got to send. "I've been carrying these for 6 years," she said quietly, "waiting for the right moment to deliver them to their families. But I realized I couldn't do that until the truth was told, until someone in command acknowledged what really happened." Each name, each story hit the room like a physical blow. Colonel Harrison's hands trembled slightly as he flipped through the notebook. Page after page of meticulous records, ammunition counts, casualty reports, weather conditions, enemy positions, all written in the same steady handwriting, even as the situation deteriorated. "These are incredibly detailed," he whispered. Elena nodded. "I was the communications specialist. It was my job to document everything." She pulled out a small radio transcript, handwritten on military letterhead. This is the last transmission from Sergeant Murphy to your command post. Scorpion 7 to command. We have 4 KIA, 1 critical wounded, requesting immediate medevac at Grid 42 RQM 67890. We are combat ineffective, but holding position. Please advise. Your response, transmitted at 50:23 hours, was Scorpion 7, redirect to Grid 245, higher priorities elsewhere. Out. That grid coordinate was 15 kilometers away through enemy territory with no transportation. We couldn't move our wounded. The colonel's voice cracked. I wasn't told your team survived long enough to document all this. Elena replied simply, We didn't survive, sir. I did. That's enough. She stood up, and for the first time, her voice carried the weight of command. I'm not here to destroy your career, Colonel. I'm not here for revenge or justice. I'm here so that no one ever forgets the cost of a quiet order. You made a tactical decision. I understand that, but 4 people died because of it, and for 6 years I've carried their memory in silence. Today, I needed you to know their names. Colonel Harrison slowly stood. For the first time in his decorated career, he saluted her. Officers nearby, once dismissive, now stood at attention, not for the colonel, but for Elena. She didn't return the salute. She simply nodded, then walked toward the door. Before leaving, she placed the notebook and dog tags on the table. These don't belong to me anymore. They belong to history. CTA Comment Act 3. If you were ever helped by someone who got no recognition, comment, I owe someone. Elena remained at the base, still working maintenance and communications support, but now people greeted her with quiet respect. She was invited to speak at a leadership conference, a veterans memorial service, a military academy graduation. She refused them all. Let those who didn't come back speak instead, through how we serve. Her locker was found to contain personal items she'd never mentioned. Letters from families of her fallen unit members, written to her over the years. Small mementos, a patch from Corporal Jackson, a challenge coin from Specialist Brooks, a photo from Private Wilson, each with initials carefully embroidered. She had been their unofficial memorial, carrying their memory in silence for 6 years. But the most remarkable discovery came when soldiers began to notice the changes Elena had quietly made around the base over the years. The memorial garden near the chapel that everyone assumed was maintained by groundskeeping. Elena had been tending it every morning before sunrise, planting flowers that bloomed in the birth months of her fallen teammates. The small library in the recreation center that had an unusually good collection of books about grief and healing. Elena had been anonymously donating those books, one by one, for soldiers dealing with loss. The base chaplain revealed that Elena had been volunteering at the counseling center, helping other soldiers process combat trauma. She never spoke about her own experience, but her presence somehow helped others find the words they couldn't say. She has this gift, the chaplain said. She can sit with someone's pain without trying to fix it or judge it. She just understands. Mitchell, the intelligence analyst who had uncovered the truth, decided to investigate further. He found that Elena's pattern of quiet service extended beyond their base. At every installation where she'd been stationed over the past 6 years, she had left similar traces: memorial gardens, donated books, anonymous support for struggling soldiers and their families. In her personnel file, Mitchell found something else. Elena had been donating most of her military pay to a scholarship fund for children of fallen soldiers. The fund was named the Second Chance Foundation, and Elena was listed as an anonymous donor. She had given away over $150,000 over 6 years, nearly everything she had earned. When asked about it, Elena simply said, "They gave me a second chance at life. The least I can do is give other kids a second chance at their dreams." Over the following months, the base quietly honored Scorpion 7. A memorial wall was installed near the main entrance with their unit emblem and motto, "They held the line. She brought them home." No fanfare, no speeches, no media coverage, just recognition. Colonel Harrison personally funded the memorial. He also quietly arranged for the official record to be amended, acknowledging the sacrifice of Scorpion 7. Then one morning, Elena was gone. A note left on her desk simply said, "I'm not disappearing. I just needed the truth to stand, even if I walk away. The mission is complete. No parade, no farewell ceremony, no forwarding address. Just an empty workstation and a room that never quite felt the same. But Elena had left one final gift. In her desk drawer, soldiers found carefully wrapped packages, one for each person at the base who had shown her kindness over the years. Inside each package was a small, handwritten note and a meaningful object: a book for the young soldier who had struggled with reading, a compass for the navigator who had doubted himself, a photo of the unit for the officer who had defended her. The note to Colonel Harrison was different. Along with Sergeant Murphy's wedding ring, she had written, "This belongs to a hero. Please make sure his wife gets it. And Colonel, thank you for listening. That's all any of us ever wanted." Later, they discovered she had quietly transferred to another remote base, still working maintenance, still arriving before sunrise, still serving in silence, still carrying the weight so others don't have to. But this time, she wasn't running from the truth. She was carrying it forward. Mitchell received a postcard from her 3 months later. No return address, just a picture of a sunrise over mountains and a simple message: "The sun rises for them too." Colonel Harrison kept Murphy's wedding ring on his desk as a reminder. He also established a new protocol. Every operation, every decision, every order would be reviewed not just for tactical effectiveness, but for its human cost. He called it the Scorpion Standard. No soldier left behind meant no soldier forgotten. Some say Elena continues to transfer from base to base, always in the background, always invisible, always remembering. But now, people look for her. They watch for the signs, the memorial gardens that appear overnight, the anonymous donations, the quiet presence in the counseling center. They call her the guardian angel of the forgotten. The memorial wall remains, visited quietly by soldiers who understand. And sometimes, on March 8th, someone leaves 5 small American flags there, one for each member of Scorpion 7. But now there's also a 6th flag, placed by someone who remembers that survivors carry their own burden of honor. CTA Comment Act 4. Comment: I will live with integrity if you believe quiet truth is louder than applause. Elena's story teaches us something profound. Not everyone who stands silently is being disrespectful. Some stand still because they once stood alone when no one else came. The salute she refused wasn't rebellion, it was remembrance, a moment she refused to fake for the sake of those who never got a second chance. In a world obsessed with formality, she brought truth. You may encounter someone like Elena, quiet, distant, not clapping, not saluting, not joining the crowd. Before you judge, ask yourself, what might they be carrying that you'll never see? What battles have they fought that history forgot? What truth are they protecting by refusing to pretend? Because sometimes the most honest gesture is no gesture at all. And sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who held the line when it mattered most. Remember Elena. Remember Scorpion 7. Remember that honor isn't always loud. Final CTA. If this story moved you, comment "I see you" for everyone who serves in silence.